Good morning, viewers. It is great to have you again on DDM Morning Show. I am Tochuk Raphael, joined by Ibrahim Umawase. Ibrahim, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Tochuk Raphael. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, today is 26th of August, 2025. It's packed with big stories in Nigerian politics. Rivers residents split over Governor Fubara's anticipated return as 6-month emergency and tenure approaches. And from there, PDP picks Southern Nigeria for 2027 presidential slot. And finally, Atiku Abubakar declares, I will run again for presidency in 2027. Now these are wonderful stories. Let's give you, analysis of this. This is DDM Morning Show. Stay tuned. All right. As the 6-month emergency rule in Rivers State approaches its conclusion in September 2025, the residents remain divided over the anticipated return of suspended Governor Siminalayi Fubara. The emergency rule declared by President Bola Tinubu on March 18, 2025, resulted in the suspension of Governor Fubara, his deputy, and the State House of Assembly, following an intense political conflict between Fubara and former Governor Nyesom Wike, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory. The public sentiment is polarized. Supporters eagerly await Governor Fubara's return, hoping for a resumption of development projects stalled during the emergency period. Jerry Omasongwa, Fubara's media aide, stated that expectations are very high for Fubara to revive key infrastructure projects such as Road, Omokwelele Road, and the Trans-Calabari Road. Now, there is also strong demand for addressing employment gaps in education and health sectors, with calls for the rehabilitation of schools and establishment of agencies for disaster management. Conversely, some residents expressed concerns over governance paralysis during the 5 months of the emergency rule, citing stagnation and administrative uncertainty under Vice Admiral Ibok Eteba's sole administration. Political analyst Dr. Obin Nanwodim highlighted the difference in development progress pre and post suspension, noting that governance was frozen with many projects left unattended and questions about the effectiveness of the emergency administration. Among the dissenting voices is Honorable Darlington Muju, an APC chieftain from Rivers, who expressed frustration about the stalled governance and policy inconsistencies during the emergency period, deploring the slow payment of salaries and administrative disruptions since March 2025. Now, let's give it a recap. President Tinubu's declaration cited escalating political crisis triggered by the rivalry between Governor Fubara and Nyesom Wike. The conflict led to the heightened tensions, including an October 2023 fire that razed the Rivers State House of Assembly complex and allegations of pipeline vandalism linked to unrest in the state. The president invoked Section 305 of the Nigerian Constitution, suspending the democratic institutions and appointing a sole administrator to restore order and security. The emergency rule generated controversy and criticism across Nigeria. The Nigerian Bar Association and opposition political figures condemned the move as an affront to democracy and an overreach of executive power. Rivers' former governor, Rotimi Amechi, called the suspension unconstitutional and a power grab aimed at destabilizing politically opposing factions ahead of the 2027 elections. Mr. Due Process, to talk about this, we have a regular guest, Mr. Due Process. You are welcome to the program.
Yes, good morning, Tochuk Raphael.
All right, this is a good development. Some would tag it as the restoration of democracy in the Rivers State. But some would say, how can the governor, Fubara, manage or be able to restore governance the way it was? Let's have your take on this.
My take on the situation in Rivers State is such that It's a toll of illegality upon illegality. In the first instance, there is no constitutional provision granted to any sitting president to remove a governor, not even to remove a councillor. But that is what we describe as abuse of power and overreaching of the executive powers of the president, who decided to declare the removal of the sitting governor where he has no any constitutional right to do so. Of course, you saw the Nigerian Bar Association condemn the act in its totality. Here, they are talking about the expiration of the 6 months illegal suspension. It's just a jamboree of the elites who are not acting as elites, because elites in its real sense should be people who see themselves in the highest form of honorable and behave so. But in this instance, we have thieves, we have corrupt government officials, we have looters, we have a gang of drug lords who have overshadowed the hem of political powers in Nigeria, and they administer power like it's being done in the garage, in the motor parks where they exhibit different powers without any recourse to constitution. So that is what we have under the Tinubu-led administration. I don't see any reason to celebrate about illegality. It's an illegality in the first instance. So what are you celebrating coming back? There is nothing to celebrate. Rather, it is just another round of criminal agreements that may have been reached behind the scene on power sharing formula, on the allocation sharing formulas, on all that has to do with governance have been discussed behind closed doors. What is left for the people of Rivers State? That's the question here. The people of Rivers State are the scapegoats in the scheme of things. Their future come 2027 has already been negotiated. These are the things that should occupy our mind, not necessarily the return of any governor. Similar, Fubara has fought heavily. He's tried to hold sway despite all pressure from the highest powers in the land. He's remained unyielding in the open, but behind the scene, we don't really understand what's happening. Of course, there are negotiations, and I wonder why the mandate of the people should be negotiated. The people mandate should be respected. The people of River States have the right to be served, and that should take the center stage. Coming to Wike, Wike has been known for who he is, and he is never changing. He remains the power monger. He's former governor of Rivers State, and of course, he should see himself as that. But he still want to have a decision on what happens in the government house in Rivers State. He wants to just keep Fubara there as a figurehead, whereas he lives in Abuja as Minister of FCT to remote control the governor of Rivers State. You see, the part also will never end. Even if Fubara is installed today as the governor to continue whatever he has been doing, I don't see this part also ending anytime soon. The only condition or conditionalities for ending this part also in the eyes of Wike is to have a new Fubara that will be a yes sir, yes lord, yes lord. And if that's not the case, there will be no end to this part also. Of course, the political elites, they've underrated the power of the people. They don't really rate the reactions of the people to make any meaningful impact, because today, if Nigerians are coming out to protest, of course, there are assumptions that they are paid to come out. So Nigerians don't do anything for the good of it. Nigerians don't take civic responsibility for the good of it. How many of these people that are clamoring today will turn down offers from Fubara led, from Wike, These are the questions. And the sole administrator has been accused of, also continuing with his abuse of power. Of course, he's occupying an illegal office. He lacks the mandate to occupy that office. There are procedures that should have been followed before you even declare the state of emergency. And the state of emergency is not supposed to be declared by an individual sitting in Aso Rock. It's supposed to be decided by the National Assembly by overwhelming majority. Not just an individual sitting in Aso Rock feels he has all the powers in the world to just gather his executive council and declare a state of emergency. We are living in a constituted country, and there's constitution that ought to be followed. So my sincere submission at this point is that this is just the beginning of the battle in Rivers State. Even if the governor is reinstalled today to continue, if he doesn't yield completely to the demands of Wike and Wike continue being accommodated by Tinubu, the power tussle will continue.
Are you saying that the expected comeback of Governor Fubara, come up September, is built or has been built on a foundation of a perceived compromise that he has dished out to Governor Wike and Tinubu? Is that what you are saying?
Certainly so. There must have been a compromise somewhere. And if such compromise are not followed to the letter, are not obeyed meticulously by similar Fubara, I see another round of tussle coming up. And the Fubara that I know is not easily predictable. He's somebody that also has a mind of his own, irrespective of whatever agreement he may have reached. You can still go ahead to take a decision for himself and for these good people of Rivers State.
All right. How can federal and state governments better manage political crises without undermining democratic institutions? Because we find ourselves in a federal system of government, and the conflict between state and federal governments, come from time to time, and in most cases, the federal governments, shows this superior power because Nigeria is not a true federalism, as some will argue. So, how do you think this conflict between the federal and the state governments could be managed without undermining democratic principles?
Yes, in the first instance, the whole scenario did not start between Similar Fubara and Tinubu. Neither did it start between Fubara and the National Assembly, right? That's not the case. So there is no any case of federal and state crisis management here. The entire crisis started from Wike, yes, or Wike, who wants to determine the entire executive for Fubara. He wants to decide on the commissioner. He wants to ensure that he just fixed Fubara in the midst of this hawk to monitor him and decide affairs of the states, decide the allocation of the states. And he also planted all his men around the state assembly who are just there to service his interests and service his ego. Wiki has a lot of ego, he brags a lot, and they are just there to service his interests, not the good people of Rivers State. So as far as this situation persists, right, there is no end in this whole battle. The only time when there will be an end to this battle is a very difficult condition, which in both sides, I don't see any of them meeting up with it. One, for the battle to end in Rivers State, Fubara must submit himself as a boy to Wike, not as a governor. That is one. Two, as a boy means whatever Wike decides or puts on his table, his own is just to pen his signature on it without asking question why. And the Fubara I know will not yield to that, even no matter the pressure. Two, to end the battle in Rivers State, Wike ought to be dismissed from all forms of involvement in Rivers State. He has to be warned seriously to disembark, which I don't see him doing that. He will lay claim that it's a structure. I don't see him doing that. And in order to further quell the circumstance, the situation over there in Rivers State, you can, if we have a legitimate sitting president, what is wrong in removing Wike as a minister of FCT? There's nothing wrong with it because he has abused his powers by interfering in the affairs of a state, which is Rivers State. The president has power to remove him from the minister of FCT. And of course, you see the PDP from the party angle, they're already trying to solve the situation. They've tried repeatedly to hold their convention in Abuja, to hold their meetings in Abuja. Wike keep disrupting their meetings. Now they have moved the meetings to Oyo State, coming up in November, right? So from party-wise, they are taming his wings. So if the president, for instance, and remove him from Minister of FCT, he will now lack the government backing to carry on with this rascality that is currently exhibiting. And on the other hand, in Rivers State, if the governor did not yield, then there'll be another round of setback. But even no matter the situation, after this round of backlashes that have come in to the president for removing a sitting governor, I don't see a repeat of another state of emergency as a justification for removing Fubara. In the first instance, there is no crisis in Rivers State. We all know there are states that deserve state of emergency, which the government is turning a blind eye, like Borno State has been going through repeated cycle of insecurity, terrorism, and all that. These are states that deserve, state of emergency, not Rivers State. Of course, even the bomb blast the bombing of the pipeline that happened, the government, government with all our security architecture, intelligence network, cannot be able to determine who exactly was responsible for that act. Then there is no governance in Nigeria. So let's not deceive ourselves. That's my submission.
But what lessons should Nigeria draw about constitutional democracy from the Rivers State emergency intervention?
My problem is that the government we have, history have proven that they've not learned from any antecedents. They've never learned, because if they have been learning, they should have reconsidered some of the moves they are making as a government. I don't see them learning from this as a negative step, because for governments like this to become cautious of our actions, they have to understand that there will be consequences, right? But in this instance, there have been no consequences for the Nigerian government, because the people, the power of the people have been trampled upon. They understand that the votes does not count. So where is the consequences coming in? Have you ever seen any Nigerian politician having served in place of authority going to prison for abuse of power? Have you ever seen any? There have been no consequences. The judiciary has been totally bought and subdued by powers of the federal might. So there is nothing, no consequence. As a matter of fact, there are many atrocities that have happened in this country who have been sacked. You understand, 200 persons slept and could not wake up in Benue State. They were killed by terrorists. And the Minister of Defense is still there, sitting comfortably. The army chief is still sitting comfortably. The police is sitting comfortably. Nobody has been sacked. The commissioner of police in Benue State, nobody has been sacked. So I'm using this as an instance that there is no consequences for Nigerian government officials. They do whatever they want and they get away with it without any consequences.
All right, thank you very much. All right, and to you viewers, we appreciate your presence. Do ensure to join us again tomorrow for another fresh edition of DDM Morning Show. If you like this video, do not hesitate to hit the like button, make your comments on the topics we have discussed, share the video, and then subscribe to DDM TV. I am Tochukwu Raphael. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.